1. Disfluencies. Hesitation fillers. Use common English fillers sort of, kind of. These should appear naturally where someone might pause to think, especially early in the conversation or when retrieving specific data, but used sparingly as the speakers are knowledgeable. Example, host speaker. So what's the main takeaway here? Expert speaker. Well, the growth is really significant, especially in APAC. Fillers, discourse markers. Use words like, well, right, okay, so actually, you see to structure speech, transition between points, or introduce an idea. Example, expert speaker, reaching about 2.7 billion by 2033. Host speaker. Right, okay, so what's driving that exactly? Expert speaker. Well, a big part is actually the rise in vision impairment cases. 3. False starts and restarts. Show speakers starting a thought, pausing, and rephrasing. Example, host speaker. And the biggest application is, well, actually, it's laser beam characterization, isn't it? Expert speaker. Yes, that holds the largest share right now. 4. Interruptions and overlapping speech. Allow speakers to gently interrupt or start speaking just before the other finishes, especially for agreement or quick additions. The alternating line format helps simulate this. Example, host speaker. So North America has the biggest slice of the pie, over 40%. Expert
Still up there,
speaker,
huh?
yeah, over 40% 2025, exactly. And their growth looks really solid too. Host speaker, around 19.5% CAGR, I think. Expert speaker, that's right, 19.5%. 5. Back channeling and affirmations include short verbal cues like, okay, right, yeah, I see, got it, sure, to show the listener is following and engaged. Example, expert speaker, mainly driven by advancements in ophthalmic diagnostics. Host speaker, expert speaker, and also the rise in refractive errors, needing glasses. Host speaker, right, got it. 6, colloquialisms and informal language. Use natural, slightly informal language appropriate for a podcast conversation, not overly academic or stiff. Phrasing like, big jump, slice of the pie, what's the deal with it? Stuff like that. Example, host speaker. Okay, so that's North America and Europe. What's the story with Asia Pacific? They seem to be growing fast. Expert speaker. Oh yeah, they're really taking off. Huge growth projected there. 7, tag questions. Occasionally end statements with confirming questions like, all right, where isn't it? All right, Example, expert speaker. Healthcare is the biggest end user sector. Makes sense, right? Host speaker, yeah, definitely. 8, sentence fragments. Use shorter phrases or incomplete sentences where natural in conversation rather than strictly grammatical sentences. Example, host speaker. And the fastest growing type, expert speaker, wavefront curvature sensors, advancements in laser optics driving that. 9, direct address to listener. Use you to engage the audience directly. Example, host speaker. So for you listening, our mission here is to unpack this market. 10, varying pace implied. Use sentence length and structure to imply changes in pace, shorter sentences for emphasis, longer ones for detailed explanation. Example, expert speaker. The potential is huge, really huge, especially when you consider applications in microscopy and, well, even consumer electronics down the line. Host speaker. Wow. Okay. Host speaker. And English notes.
Think about how crucial it is these days to get things in focus, whether it's, tiny details under a microscope or a really distant star.
Absolutely. That ability to precisely see and manipulate light, it's becoming just essential in so many fields.
So what's really at the heart of this growing demand for optical accuracy?
That's exactly what we're exploring today. We're taking a deep dive into the global market for something called wavefront sensors.
Okay.
And we're using a pretty comprehensive report from Cognitive Market Research as our guide here.
Wavefront sensor sounds quite technical. For those of us, maybe not optical engineers, what exactly does one of these things do?
Okay, good question. Imagine like a beam of light traveling as a smooth, even wave. Picture the surface of a still pond, maybe.
Right.
A wavefront sensor is basically a clever device that measures any distortions or imperfections in that wave.
Ah, okay.
It tells us precisely how the light is being bent or warped as it travels through, say, a lens or the atmosphere or even your eye.
Got it. So it maps out the bumps in the light wave. Okay, I think I've got a mental picture.
Exactly.
So for you listening in, our goal today, our mission, is to understand the current size of this market, where it's predicted to go, what the key applications are, what these sensors are actually used for, and which regions of the world are really leading the way.
Precisely. And yeah, this cognitive market research report gives us a really detailed analysis and future projections to help us understand all of that.
All right, let's dive in then. The big picture first.
Yeah.
What's the current size of this global wavefront sensor market?
So according to the report, for 2025, the global market is projected to be USD 581.9 million.
Okay, nearly 600 million. That's pretty substantial to start with. Where do they see this market heading, say, over the next decade or so?
Well, the forecast shows some pretty significant growth. By 2033, the market is expected to reach USD 2,709.38 million.
Whoa. Okay, 2.7 billion.
Hmm.
That's a huge expansion, almost 5 times bigger in just 8 years.
Yeah, it's a remarkable jump.
What's the main engine driving this? What's causing such rapid growth?
The report really identifies one key factor above others: the increasing number of people worldwide experiencing vision impairments.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
This growing need for, better vision drives demand for more sophisticated diagnostic tools and treatment methods, many of which rely on this tech.
Right. More vision problems means a greater need for the kind of precise optical measurements that these wavefront sensors provide, especially in eye care. Okay. So
Exactly.
let's break it down geographically. Which part of the world is currently the biggest player in this market?
Right now, in 2025, that would be North America. It holds the largest market share, accounting for just over 40% of global revenue.
40%. Wow.
Yeah, it translates to about USD 215.3 billion.
So the U.S. and Canada are really out front. What kind of growth are they expecting over there in North America?
They're projecting a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 19.5% between 2025 and 2033.
Okay.
That would bring the market value up to around USD 894.1 million by 2033.
Nearly 900 million. And the U.S. specifically.
Yeah, looking closer, the U.S. market alone is estimated at about USD 169.87 million in 2025,
Right.
with a very similar CGR, 19.3%. And the report really emphasizes technological innovation as a key driver in the U.S.
And what about Canada and Mexico? Are they seeing similar trends?
Pretty much, yeah. Canada's market is projected at roughly USD 25.84 million in 2025, with a slightly higher CGR, actually, 20.3%.
Interesting.
And that seems to be fueled by increasing investments in, vision care technologies.
Yeah.
Mexico's market is around USD 19.59 million in 2025, with a solid 20.0% CAGR expected.
So really strong growth right across North America. What are
Yeah.
the specific factors contributing to this dominance?
Well, the report lists quite a few drivers. Big ones are advancements in ophthalmic diagnostics, how we diagnose eye conditions.
Okay.
Also, the increasing prevalence of refractive errors, nearsightedness, farsightedness, astigmatism.
Right. More people needing correction.
Exactly. Then there's the growing use of adaptive optics in medical imaging. That's basically technology that actively corrects distortions to get clearer images.
Like giving MRI machines better eyesight.
Sort of, yeah. Good analogy. Also, significant healthcare spending in general, an aging population which naturally has more vision needs, strong R&D investment, and simply the presence of key industry players headquartered there.
Okay, that paints a really clear picture for North America. Who's in second place then?
That would be Europe. They hold over 30% of the global revenue in 2025.
Over 30%.
Yeah, which comes out to about USD 168.75 million.
And what's the growth looking like? Similar to North America.
Very similar, actually. They anticipate a CAGR of 20.1% from 2025 to 2033,
Okay.
which would take their market value up to around USD 731.5 million.
The growth rates are pretty consistent so far among the big players. Which countries in Europe are the main contributors?
Let's see. Germany is actually the largest at USD 33.41 million in 2025 with a 20.3% CAGR. The UK is close behind at USD 28.35 million. Slightly higher CGR at 20.9%. France is significant too, around USD 15.53 million, 19.3% CGR.
And others.
Yeah. Russia, Italy, Spain also have, notable market sizes and growth projections. And then you have smaller but still growing markets like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland. It's pretty widespread growth across the continent.
Interesting to see the breakdown. What's specifically fueling the demand for wavefront sensors in Europe? Is it similar to North America?
A lot of overlap, yes. Things like ongoing advancements in ophthalmology and adaptive optics are key. We're also seeing more use of lasers for diagnostics, a strong demand for vision correction procedures, LASIK, cataract surgery, that kind of thing. But also some other applications like in astronomical observatories and even defense applications like laser weapons development or free space optical communication.
Okay, so defense is a factor there too.
Yeah, and also AI is starting to play a role in optical testing for industry. That's boosting demand too.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've covered the two biggest markets. Let's shift focus to a region you mentioned has particularly high growth potential, Asia Pacific.
Right, APAC. So currently they account for around 23% of the global revenue share in 2025.
Okay.
That's about USD 139.66 million. But yeah, its projected growth rate is the highest among the major regions. We're talking a CAGR of 24.3% from 2025 to 2033.
Wow, 24.3%. That is impressive.
It really is. That would bring their market to roughly USD 795.2 million by 2033, potentially overtaking Europe.
So which countries in APAC are leading this surge?
China is the dominant player in the region, about USD 58.66 million in 2025, with a 23.8% CAGR.
Okay.
Japan is next, around USD 19.27 million, 22.8% CAGR. Then South Korea at USD 16.76 million, 23.4% CAGR. And India, I often hear about high growth there.
Absolutely. India shows really strong potential, market size around USD 13.97 million in 2025, but with the highest AGR in the region, 26.2%.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're also seeing significant activity in Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia as a whole. So what's driving this really rapid expansion across Asia-Pacific?
Well, the report points to increasing adoption basically everywhere. Ophthalmology, astronomy, industries that use lasers.
Right.
The demand for very precise optics in defense and aerospace is also a big factor there. Plus, growing R&D and optical metrology, the science of measuring light precisely.
Okay.
And huge investment in semiconductor manufacturing, which absolutely relies on precision optics. Add in government support for tech advancements and, like elsewhere, the rising need for vision correction. It's a combination of factors.
Makes sense. Okay, moving to other parts of the world, what's the picture in South America?
South America holds a smaller share, just over 5% in 2025. That's about USD 22.11 million.
Okay.
But still strong growth, projected a CAGR of 22.00%, expected to reach about USD 108.4 million by 2033.
And which countries are leading there?
Brazil is the largest market, around USD 9.46 million in 2025, with a 22.6% CAGR. Argentina follows, about USD 3.71 million, similar CAGR at 22.9%.
Mm-hmm.
And we also see growing markets in places like Colombia, Peru, and Chile.
And the drivers for growth in South America. Similar themes again.
Pretty similar, yeah. Increasing adoption in astronomy, ophthalmology, laser diagnostics.
Right.
The expansion of research institutions and growing investments in healthcare technology are also important. And, like APAC, applications in defense, autonomous vehicles, optical metrology, plus government initiatives.
Okay. How about the Middle East?
The Middle East accounts for a smaller slice, around 2% of the global revenue in 2025, about USD 23.28 million.
And their growth.
Also strong, actually. Projected CAGR of 22.7%, which would bring the market to about USD 119.2 million by 2033.
Which countries are the key players there?
Saudi Arabia leads the way, about USD 8.19 million in 2025, 23.0% CAGR. Then the UAE, around USD 4.79 million, slightly higher CAGR at 23.2%.
Okay.
Turkey and Qatar, also growing markets, mentioned in the report.
And what's driving their market specifically?
Again, familiar themes. Demand in astronomy, ophthalmology, laser applications. Adoption in defense and aerospace sectors is growing. Plus, investments in research and, importantly, the expansion of healthcare infrastructure, particularly for eye diagnostics and refractive surgery. Government support helps too.
Right. Okay, one last region, Africa.
Africa currently holds the smallest share, around 1% of global revenue in 2025. That's about USD 12.80 million.
Okay.
Now, the report projects a CAGR of 21.50%, but the projected value for 2033 jumps massively to USD 795.2 million.
Whoa, hang on, 795 million. That's the same figure you gave for APAC, which started much larger. That sounds potentially like a typo in the source.
It does seem unusually high, doesn't it? That's a really significant leap from 12.8 million. I agree that figure probably needs careful verification. Anyone using this data should definitely double-check that specific projection for Africa.
Good point. Always important to sanity check the numbers.
Yeah.
So assuming the starting point and TGR are roughly right, which countries are the main markets within Africa currently?
South Africa leads, about USD 4.51 million in 2025, with a solid 22.4% CAGR projected. Nigeria is next, smaller at USD 1.02 million, but still growing at 21.7% CDR.
Right.
The rest of Africa is grouped together, but represents a growing segment overall.
And the driving force is there, assuming more modest growth than that outlier figure suggests.
It's about increasing investments in optical technologies generally, astronomy, healthcare, industrial uses.
Right.
Growth in ophthalmology services, adoption in telescopes for projects like the Square Kilometer Array, expansion of R&D centers, and some government initiatives in space research and defense.
Okay, so a truly global market, strong growth expected pretty much everywhere, even if we treat that Africa projection with caution.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the technology itself now. What different types of wavefront sensors are being used?
Right. The report highlights two main types. The common path interferometer segment is expected to dominate the market, hold the largest share.
Common path interferometer. What makes that type dominant?
Think of it as a really clever way to compare the distorted light wave with a perfect reference wave within the same instrument, basically traveling the same path.
Ah,
This makes it incredibly sensitive and, crucially, less prone to outside noise like vibrations. That's really important for delicate stuff like astronomical observations or the super precise manufacturing of computer chips.
so high stability, high precision.
Exactly. The demand for high-resolution imaging in astronomy and biomedical fields, plus the growth in semiconductor manufacturing, are really driving its dominance.
Makes sense. So that's the biggest segment. What about the fastest growing type of sensor?
That would be the Wavefront curvature sensor sector.
Temperature sensor.
Yeah, its rapid growth is being fueled by advancements in laser optics and the increasing demand for, again, very high precision imaging. They're also becoming more important in enhancing vision correction technologies like LASIK, and their use is growing fast in optical metrology, that science of measuring light precisely, and also in defense applications. They help improve imaging accuracy by detecting and correcting distortions basically in real time.
Real-time correction.
Okay.
That sounds powerful. So as tech advances, we see faster growth in areas offering maybe more speed or real-time capabilities.
That seems to be the trend, yeah.
Now let's look at how these sensors are being used,
Mhm.
the applications. Which area holds the largest share right now?
Currently, that's laser beam characterization, making sure laser beams are exactly what they need to be.
Okay, why is that so dominant?
It's driven by the increasing need for really high-precision laser systems in all sorts of industries: aerospace, defense, healthcare, semiconductor manufacturing,
Yeah.
you name it. Plus, the expansion of things like laser-based communication, adaptive optics, which we mentioned, giving systems better eyesight and advanced manufacturing processes.
Right.
We're also just getting better at assessing laser beam quality in real time, and more high-power lasers are being used in research and industry. It all adds up.
So quality control for lasers is a primary use case.
Yeah.
What application area is seeing the most rapid expansion then?
That would be microscopy and endoscopy.
In medicine and life sciences mostly.
Primarily, yeah, but also industrial inspection.
Yeah.
There's a huge demand for higher resolution imaging in medical diagnostics, life sciences research.
Right.
Advancements in adaptive optics are really enhancing the precision you can get with microscopes and endoscopes now.
So seeing smaller and clearer.
Exactly. And seeing more. Getting more information at that smaller scale. It helps with earlier disease detection, more precise analysis of materials. It's a real game changer in those fields.
Yeah, I can see that.
Plus, growing investments in healthcare, biomedical research, the semiconductor industry, and just the general trend towards minimally invasive medical procedures are all boosting this segment.
It's fascinating to see these specific applications driving growth. Now let's connect that to the end-use industries. Which industries are the biggest users overall?
No huge surprise here. Maybe the healthcare sector holds the largest share of the market.
Makes sense, given the vision impairment driver and the microscopy growth.
Precisely. It's driven by that demand for highly accurate eye diagnostics, the rise in refractive errors we talked about, and advancements in adaptive optics for laser eye surgeries.
Right, things like wavefront-guided LASIK.
Exactly, allowing for more personalized and precise treatments. Plus, the growing number of older adults needing vision care and just expanding applications of these wavefront-guided treatments.
Okay, so healthcare is number one. What about the industry seeing the fastest growth in using these sensors?
That would be aerospace and defense. That sector is expanding its use rapidly.
Why the fast growth there?
It's fueled by the increasing need for high-precision optical systems in things like military surveillance, missile guidance systems,
Okay.
and using adaptive optics for space exploration, to get clearer images by compensating for atmospheric distortion.
Right, taking the twinkle out of the stars, basically.
Essentially, yes. And advancements in laser communication for satellites, better satellite imaging tech, general defense tech advancements, it all drives demand. Plus, big R&D investments in these areas.
Wow. So these sensors aren't just for fixing eyesight, they're literally on the cutting edge of defense and exploring the cosmos.
Absolutely. It really highlights the versatility of the technology.
Beyond healthcare and aerospace, which other industries are significant end users.
The report also points to industrial and manufacturing as important, IT and telecommunication too,
Okay.
and consumer electronics is mentioned. You could potentially see this tech making its way into advanced cameras or displays eventually.
Interesting.
And then there's an others category, which includes areas like automotive, think advanced driver assist systems, and semiconductor manufacturing, which we touched on earlier.
So a really wide range of industries benefiting. Okay, we've covered a lot. Size, growth, regions, types, applications, industries. Let's step back a bit. What are the fundamental factors, the main currents, propelling this entire market forward?
Sure. The report boils it down to a few key market drivers. Firstly, just the ongoing advancements in adaptive optic systems themselves. They keep getting better, more capable.
Right, the core tech is improving.
Secondly, specifically the growing use of adaptive optics in astronomy to correct for atmospheric distortions. That's a big application pushing the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, just continuous technological innovation and sustained R&D investments across all these different sectors are constantly pushing the market forward.
Okay, makes sense. But of course, no market grows completely unchecked. What are some of the restraints or challenges holding back the wavefront sensor market?
The report points out two main ones. First, the high manufacturing costs. These are sophisticated precision instruments, and they aren't cheap to make.
Okay, cost is a barrier.
Second, dealing with often complex and stringent government regulations in different countries. That can affect development timelines and implementation, add complexity.
Right, regulatory hurdles. Got it. So, looking ahead now, what are some of the key trends we should be watching in this field? Where is it evolving?
Well, the report highlights a rising demand specifically in biomedical imaging. So beyond eyes and microscopes, maybe even more detailed, less invasive diagnostic techniques for other parts of the body.
Okay, interesting.
We're also seeing increasing use, potentially in the automotive industry, particularly for things like LiDAR and advanced driver assistance systems, ADS.
Helping cars see better and more accurately.
Potentially, yeah. And finally, as I mentioned, they see potential for increasing use in consumer electronics down the line, improved imaging, maybe new kinds of user interfaces.
Fascinating. Okay, one last area. The company's actually making these sensors. What does the competitive landscape look like? Who are the major players?
It's described as a highly competitive market, as you might expect. It features a mix of both large, global corporations and smaller, more specialized companies focused purely on optics.
Right.
Some key names mentioned in the report include, AKA OpticSys, Alpeo, Boston Micro Machines, Carl Zeiss Meditech, a big name in optics,
Yeah.
Flexible Optical BV, Iris AO, Northrop Grumman, a major defense player, Active Optical Systems, Optocraft, Phasix Corp, Dynamic Optics, Thor Labs, another well-known optic supplier, Trioptics, Imagine Optic, and Optical Physics Company.
That's quite a list. A diverse group, from pure optics specialists to giants like Zeiss and Northrop Grumman. How do these companies stay ahead in such a competitive field?
Well, the report suggests it's the usual combination. Strong product portfolios covering different needs, established global distribution networks to reach customers, and crucially, a strong commitment to continuous innovation, developing new capabilities.
Right.
Actually, the report gives a neat recent example. In January 2024, Thor Labs licensed a new technology called dual-frequency comb spectroscopy from a company called Sensirion. And this license will let Thor Labs develop new sensing tools specifically for industrial and environmental imaging using mid-infrared light. So that's an example of innovation through licensing, expanding their capabilities.
I see. Okay, let's try and bring all this together then. We've heard about some really significant growth projected for this wavefront sensor market. Feels like it's hitting an inflection point.
It certainly seems that way.
And it's being driven by this powerful combination of factors primarily. The increasing need for precise vision correction globally.
Right, the healthcare angle is huge.
But also the expanding applications of the technology across just a remarkably diverse set of industries, from making chips to exploring space.
Exactly. We also discussed the regional variations, North America and Europe leading now, but Asia-Pacific growing incredibly fast.
Yeah, that 24% CGR is something to watch.
Definitely. And we highlighted healthcare and aerospace defense as the leading and fastest growing end-use sectors.
It's really fascinating, isn't it, how this seemingly quite niche field of wavefront sensing is so deeply connected to these major global trends.
It really is. Things like an aging global population needing better healthcare, the constant push for more precision and efficiency in manufacturing and technology, even our drive for scientific discovery in astronomy and biomedicine.
Hmm.
It plugs into all of that.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If we can achieve this level of precision in measuring and manipulating light, what other areas might be totally revolutionized by this kind of capability in the coming years?
Good question.
Maybe fields that you listening right now are involved in or are just curious about. What are the broader implications, really, of being able to see and control light with ever-increasing clarity and accuracy? It's definitely something interesting to ponder.